This video aims at taking you through the setup, mounting, pairing and zeroing of your ATN Auxiliary ballistic rangefinder. Later on I'll also cover some of the most common troubleshooting areas. I'll be using the ABL 1500 for this video. The ABL 1000 and the 1500 only differ in the ranges at which they can perform. All other features are identical. The ABL box will contain the ABL unit itself, an ABL mounting extension tube, a single-use battery, a set of 3 Allen keys, and the optional extra of a rear mounting kit. Your ABL is compatible with some ATN devices, but not all. It is supplied with a variety of adapter rings for the units with which it is compatible. These are the Excite 2, the Excite 4K, and the Mars 4. The Excite 4K does not require an adapter for the extension tube. On the Excite 4K and the Mars 4 devices there are 2 recognised methods of mounting the ABL. On the Excite 2, the only option is to front mount the unit. Front mounting is the most common method, using the supplied extension tube and the previously mentioned adapter rings where applicable. This method is often favoured because it aligns the ABL consistently with the rest of your scope, meaning that the ABL pulse and reticle will often be nearer the centre of your field of view. This method does, however, increase the length of the sight, which can be an issue for some people. Rear mounting has become increasingly more popular, where the ABL is positioned to the rear of the focus ring on the scope. This has many advantages, such as keeping the scope length unchanged and keeping the weight of the ABL more balanced and towards the centre of the setup, also not increasing any leverage to the device that may be caused by front mounting. Disadvantages to rear mounting the ABL are possible issues achieving good alignment. Some rifles and rail configurations don't allow enough room to mount the ABL here. The ABL being mounted here can also inhibit your access to the focus ring depending on the mounting angle. It can also leave the area between the control pad and the focus ring a little cramped, especially if you also mount your IR in this area. If you rear mount your ABL and you have an issue with alignment with the pulse, this can often be overcome or improved by simply loosening the Allen bolts on the clamping ring and then rotating the rear plastic filler to a different position and then retightening to achieve better alignment. Conventional orientation of the ABL device is at 9 o'clock position with the writing upright. However, you can mount the unit at any angle that you prefer. Things you may want to consider are increased unit width if transporting the gun in a hard case, a shift of weight and balance when the ABL is mounted to the side, and obstruction to your IR illuminator, obstruction of access to the focus ring, obstruction of the ABL beam if you use V-type shooting sticks. You may wish to pair your ABL device before you mount it to your scope. It's totally up to you which way round you do it. The ABL is unique in its operation compared to other ATN devices such as the Binox and the LRF units. They all communicate via Bluetooth, but the ABL requires a two-way communication stream as it's controlled and aimed by the rifle scope itself, whereas the other 2 units use their own dedicated optical systems. The unit runs on a single CR2 type battery. Firstly, insert the battery having removed the protective plastic foil wrap. The battery is inserted positive terminal first, as indicated, within the compartment itself. It's recommended that the battery is removed between use to ensure that if it was to fail, it will not damage the unit, and that there is no risk of the unit draining the battery during disuse. You may also find that it is more convenient to purchase rechargeable batteries rather than single-use disposable batteries. These need to be a maximum of 3 volts. To pair your scope with your ABL, you'll first need to power on the scope and power on the ABL device. On the scope, press Enter, scroll left, press Enter for the main menu, select System Settings, select Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, select ABL, select Pair. At this point, a line should start to circle around the Bluetooth icon in the top right hand corner of the viewfinder. Now hit the Bluetooth button on the ABL twice in quick succession. The Bluetooth icon background should now change colour and fill in before the display returns to the ABL menu indicating ABL paired. You can now go back out of the menu. Once you're happy with how you have your ABL mounted on the scope and the devices are paired, you can then zero the ABL reticle displayed by the scope to the ABL pulses itself. In order to do this in daytime, you'll probably need to operate at a shorter distance in order to be able to see the red indicator laser used by the ABL. Reflective materials such as number plates or similar can help with this process. The ABL uses a separate reticle to the scope. The two reticles will only align if the ABL is perfectly aligned with the scope and your rifle zero. However, this is not intended. Zeroing your ABL is necessary in order to ensure you are accurately ranging objects. This must be done because the alignment of the unit is not guaranteed by either mounting method. To zero the ABL using the laser, first you must remove the covering Allen bolt from the front of the ABL unit, as indicated. It's important to not look at the laser as it will damage your eyes. The laser will only come on when you're in the zeroing mode. To start zeroing the ABL, click OK to enter the quick menu carousel. Then select the wrench for the main menu. Select Profiles and Zero, and then Zeroing ABL. Once in the ABL zeroing screen, you'll need to identify where the red laser is pointing. This will match the alignment of the LRF pulses when you're using the ABL later. Once you can see the red dot, you must move the red box indicated on the screen to set perfectly over the top of the red laser. You can do this using the directional buttons on top of the scope. To complete the operation, click OK and the scope will return to the Profiles and Zero menu. Don't forget to replace the Allen bolt to the front of the ABL once you finish zeroing. In order to fine-tune the zeroing of your ABL, once you're using it at night, you'll be able to see the pulses emitted by the unit in order to range objects. These need to be in the centre of the red box reticle used by the ABL. If they're not, go back into the zeroing menu and readjust the box so that they are. If you're zeroing the ABL on a thermal scope, you will not be able to see either the red laser or the ABL pulses through the scope itself. You'll need to find or make a reference point that is visible to the scope by using something such as a hand warmer pouch or some tin foil on a target. Then physically move the scope and rifle until the laser emitted by the ABL is pointing at the same reference point. Then, while holding the rifle and scope steady, move the ABL reticle in the menu, as described above, until it is pointing at the same reference point. When zeroing the ABL, it's important to do so at as further distance as possible, depending on the type of rifle you are using or the likely ranges you're going to be operating at. Since the ABL and the scope don't share the same exact viewpoint, there will be some small amount of crossover factor which will be emphasised more at longer distances if your zero of the ABL is at too short a distance. For example, with a sub 12 foot air rifle, we'd recommend zeroing at 20 to 30 metres. For centrefire rifles, a minimum of 50 metres, but ideally 100 or 150 metres, whatever range you're most likely to be operating at most frequently.